Alright, welcome to Restorative Yoga, and today we're going to be running through all of the supine yoga poses. We'll be starting out in Viparita Karani, which is legs up the wall pose. So starting out, we want to make sure that we're coming up to the wall, seated against the wall with our left side body, and then rolling down onto our back. We can use a blanket or a bolster underneath our hips so that we're getting an inversion. For cueing, we want to make sure that our ankles are in alignment with our hips and that our hands are out at a 45-degree angle, externally rotated with the palms facing the ceiling. As the instructor, you want to make sure that your student has good alignment through the upper thoracic body and cervical spine. So you can go ahead and check the alignment to make sure that the head isn't off to the left or to the right, and if so, you can help to modify to put their head in proper alignment. From here, we'll go into a modification of Viparita Karani, which is having the knees bent at a 90-degree angle. So to transition into that pose, I'm going to have him bend his knees and roll into his side. Roll into your side to come out of the pose, and you're going to scoot back a few inches. Now putting the ankles up in alignment with the knees so that we're creating a 90-degree angle. So for here, as far as adjustments, I would move the feet down. For 90-degree alignment here, 90 degrees at the hips. So we want to make sure that the knees are in alignment with the hips, feet in alignment with the knees. As far as the upper body is concerned, same alignment for the positioning of the neck and head. And again, we want to make sure that we're externally rotated with our palms facing the ceiling. This is an excellent alternative to Shavasana, traditional corpse pose. You can use Viparita Karani with legs up the wall, or the modification of Viparita Karani here, because it creates an excellent inversion, a little bit greater than corpse pose can provide. All right, now we're going to transition to the rest of the supine poses that do not require the use of the wall. So I'll have you roll into your right side. And we'll reposition the mat. Okay, with head at the center. We'll go into reclined hand-to-toe pose. So reclined hand-to-toe pose isn't very accessible for most without the use and aid of a yoga strap. So what I'll recommend is this pose we can start off supplying the strap, one hand for each to start, and we're going to remain our left leg straight and our right knee we are going to bend up toward the chest so that we can get the strap around the arch of the foot. Excellent, and now we're going to straighten that leg up toward the ceiling, holding it with our right hand since we're working with our right leg. We want our left arm out at a 45-degree angle from the body, and we want to make sure that it's externally rotated. Now, to take a little bit of effort out of the pose, we can change the hold of the strap to wrap around. That takes a little bit of active tension that your hand might have holding onto the strap. And again, we want to focus too on keeping the upper body relaxed. So we've got shoulders melting down into the mat. We'll have a little bit of active tension on that right arm and right hand, but as much as you can soften into the pose. Of course, we also want to make sure that we have a bit of a micro bend to our right knee. Now from here, we're going to go straight into extended supine hand-to-toe pose. So from here, we're going to simply drop the leg out to the right, allowing gravity to work with our body. may find that some people can reach the floor while others cannot. So if there is a case of limited flexibility, we can always bolster putting a block underneath the knee and underneath the hips from this side all the way down to the foot. All right, now to come out of the pose, we want to bend the knee, bringing it toward the chest, and then we can let go of the strap. Excellent. The next pose we're coming into is rejuvenation pose. So this is a powerful inversion. So what I'd like to do is have him bring his knees to his chest. Now, because this pose is very hard to hold in a restorative manner for up to 5 minutes, it's highly beneficial to, again, use a yoga strap to alleviate some of that effort in the pose. So again, we'll have the yoga strap here on each side, and we're going to bring that around the arch of the foot. And from here, we're going to extend the legs toward the ceiling, making sure that we do not lock out the knees. We always want to create that bit of micro bend. Of course, some people may have a little bit deeper bend to the knees than others. Now from here, we want to focus on our effort and ease in the pose. So our goal in restorative yoga is to be relaxed. And when you're using a yoga strap, it's very easy to almost tense up the shoulders and the upper body while you're using the strap to support the pose. So what I'll recommend is finding a balance of effort and ease so that your upper body is still remaining as relaxed as possible while a limited amount of tension is held in the hands to help support the pose. All right, to come out of this pose, we'll bend the knees and we'll release the strap. Alright, the next pose we'll be coming into is a reclined supine twist, and this is the full version. So I'm going to have him roll onto his left side, putting his arms out, palms touching, and from here we're going to check alignment and cue our students into alignment for this pose. So the first thing that I'm going to do is check the spinal alignment. We want to make sure that the hips and shoulders are in alignment. And as we can see, his shoulders are a little bit forward of the hips. So I will cue him to bring his left shoulder and upper body back a few inches. From here, we want to make sure that we're finding a 90-degree angle in the upper body. So we are going to check the alignment here so that we're finding a 90-degree angle. The arms should be extended out, palms touching at the level of the shoulders. Next, we move on to the lower body. From here, we want to make sure that there is a 90-degree angle from the hips to the knees. So for here, we want to bring the knees up to see where they are in direct alignment with the hips. From here, we're going to bring the ankles just slightly back because again, we're looking for another 90-degree angle right here. Lastly, we're looking for a last 90-degree angle with the feet flexed. Now, for the sake of this being a restorative pose, I'm going to recommend that we put a support in between the knees. So before we go any further, we'll just place the block in between the knees, and that helps to keep the entire lumbar spine in alignment. Next, we are going to open up into the pose. So as we open, we want to make sure that the right hand is landing, again, at shoulder height. And if necessary, we can always put a block, prop, or bolsters underneath the arm and the hands if that person cannot reach the floor. Another cueing aspect is this right shoulder blade should be touching the floor. If it's not, we can use a rolled towel or blocks to support this right side body. Now coming out of the pose, we go out of it exactly the same way that we came into the pose. All right. For this, we'll remove the block. Okay. And now we can roll back onto our back. Centering ourselves once again. So we'll go onto the back. You can start off with your arms out at a T. And before we go into this, I'm going to place a block. So this is the second variation of a spinal twist. So the long way, we put the block, and what we're going to have him do is we're going to have him bring his knees up to the level of his hips versus farther in at a 45 degree angle. We want to be at a 90. And then of course from here, another 90. So watching to make sure there's 90 degrees here and 90 degrees here. Feet want to remain flexed to always protect the knees. And from here we're going to drop down to the right. And of course using gravity. So we're just allowing gravity to sink down. If you find that the student cannot reach the floor, you can always support with a block, a blanket, or any form of a prop underneath the right thigh, right knee, or right lower extremities. All right, so coming out of this pose, we can come back to center and remove the block. All right, now I'm going to have you bring your feet down to the mat. And we're going to extend the right leg out. We want our ankle to be in alignment with our right hip. So we want to bring them out just a touch. And now we're going to bring this leg up to 90. So this is a one-legged spinal twist variation. We've brought the right knee up so that it's in alignment with our hips. And of course we can see here the knee is also at a 90-degree angle. And now we are going to drop that knee down to the right. Placing any form of a block, prop, or support underneath that knee. Now, there may be some people who can fully reach the floor, and if so, wonderful. However, because this is a very deep, stretched twist, I would recommend starting out with a block, and as they deepen into the pose, they may feel obliged that they're able to remove that block and sink all the way down to the floor. But if not, they can just remain always supported. The goal is to have them fully relax in the pose, so we'd rather see them supported than tensing up because they're struggling with tension being held in the pose. All right, so we are going to come back up to center, bringing the foot down, and we're going to next go into turning the belly pose version A and B. So for this, I'm going to go into version A first. So we are going to bring the knees together, big toes touching. And now we're going to bring the knees to a 45-degree angle versus a 90. So we're going to come to the hips but go past that. And now we're going to rotate to the right. So I'll let the hips drop as far as they can go. And again, we can always support the right side body with blocks or bolsters. From here, we also want to check alignment that the knees are not going too far from one another and that the ankles are also staying in alignment. All right, we can come back to center, putting the heels down on the floor. For the next version B, we will be using the strap. strap. So bring the knees to the chest so that we can gain access to place this around the arches. And now we're going to raise the legs to the sky. Now please note before we go into the next phase of this pose that we want to make sure there's a bend in our knees. The knees should not be locked out. Whether you're at a micro bend or even a deeper bend, go to your level of comfort. And now what we're going to do is go straight over to the opposite side. So you will have to adjust the strap as you go, but we're just going to be dropping those legs straight out. Now again, just with all of the other poses, you may find that the floor just is not accessible to the client. So they need to realize that having any form of a bolster, pillow, or block within arm's distance reach is an excellent way to find full support so that while in the pose, they can fully relax. Now again, with any twist, we want to be mindful of our alignment. So as always, neck can be in a neutral position. We can slightly turn the neck toward the opposite direction of the twist. And we always want to make sure that we're getting as much external rotation as possible by having the palms facing the ceiling. Lastly, that right shoulder blade should be making contact with the floor. And as I mentioned in our first supine twist, that we can use a variety of different things. For example, a rolled towel, a small block, or a blanket, anything to support that right side body if the floor is not accessible. All right, so coming out of this pose, we want to bend the knees versus piking the legs straight up toward the ceiling. So we'll bring the knees back to the chest, and then as we come down, we can drop this out. All right, the next pose is a single leg lift. So for this, I'm going to have him position the block underneath his hips. All right. We're going to put our palms and arms out at a T, palms face up. And we want our hands to be at shoulder width. So out like a T. We're going to put one leg straight. So we'll just let this left leg go flat out on the mat. Now this is an inversion. So in the inverted aspect of this pose, the block will be centered under the hips. And now we are going to raise the leg up into the air. Be it an inversion and the fact that we have to actively have tension on this leg, it's often incorporated to, again, use a yoga strap to help to alleviate some of that active tension. So we can wrap the strap around our hand as such in effort to reduce the amount of pull and hold so that we can relax into the pose. So the things to watch for alignment are making sure that the ankle is in alignment with the hips, that we have our upper body as relaxed as possible while still maintaining a little bit of effort in holding the strap, but as much ease as possible. We want a micro bend in the knee, and everybody has different flexibility, so even a greater bend in the knee is certainly acceptable. And lastly, we want to make sure of that external rotation of having the palm facing the ceiling of whatever hand isn't holding the strap, and that hand is out at shoulder height. All right, we can release this pose by bending the knee, releasing the strap, and from here we can lift up to remove that block. Next we'll be going into fish pose. So fish pose, we have our body flat on the mat, but we're going to create an inversion. So starting off with our legs straight out, we want our feet at the width, or our ankles at the width of our hips. So I would highly recommend to separate the heels just a little bit farther. And just as a simple cue, again, we want that external rotation, so palms face the ceiling. And from here, there's another cue I will mention, is putting a support underneath the head. Not everybody needs it, but for anybody who has, for example, a herniated disc, bulging disc, or chronic neck pain or issues, I would highly recommend this form of a support, whether it's a pillow, a block, or some form of a yoga bolster. Alright, so I'm going to have you roll off of the block onto your right side because that's the proper way to come off of the block. And from here we're going to go into the one-legged wind removing pose. So have the left leg straight and we're going to bring that right knee to the chest by making a prayer with our hands. So here again we want as a little effort to create ease in the pose. So we'll create just a little bit of gentle traction, pulling that knee toward the chest, but we also want to remember that we want to keep our upper body as relaxed as possible, keeping our shoulders, the back of our head, and our hips especially relaxed. Now we'll go into Happy Baby. So a few different cueing things need to happen in order to make sure that our clients are properly in Happy Baby. So what we want to do is first bring our knees to our chest. We're going to grab the outside of our feet, right around the opposite side of our arch. And now we are going to kick our heels toward the ceiling. And we want our heels to be in alignment with our knees. From here, we want to see that our elbows are on the inside of our knees versus the outside. And we're passively pushing our heels toward the ceiling. Excellent. Lastly, another cue is we want to make sure that the low back is not rolling up off the floor. So actively pushing that low back into the mat and making sure that we're not curling up our tailbone. And here you'll find a little bit of a balance where you're finding ease in the effort of our upper body, remaining soft, remaining relaxed, but also keeping that little bit of tension through the legs. Okay, we can release out of that. So planting the feet down on the mat, we come straight into reclined pigeon. So for this, we want to have the feet at hips width apart. And from here, we're going to bring our ankle just below our right knee. We don't want to place it on top of the joint. And be sure to flex this left foot. And from here, we can apply pressure. So forward, pushing the knee. I have seen some people press forward. I would avoid doing this. We don't want to torque the hips too much. So I would say leave your hands out of it for now and just apply a little bit of forward pressure here. Now we can go into the twist version of this pose. So from here, we're going to drop the hips to the right. And again, if they're having trouble reaching the floor, that's okay. We can always support the foot or right knee with a bolster. And again, from here, we're going to be breathing and focusing on opening up this left side body. Now from here, we'll come into thread the needle pose or eye of the needle pose. So we're going to take our hands and clasp them behind our right thigh, pulling gentle traction toward our upper body. So this is the third variation of this pose. The next that we can do is coming into reclined cobbler's pose. So we can release from here. Keeping our feet together, our knees together. We want to have our arms out at a 45-degree angle with our palms facing the ceiling. And from here, we're going to drop our knees out and make sure the bottom of our feet are touching. Now, in some instances, there's a bit of variation and modifications for support that we can use during this pose. Some students may find it hard to relax in this position. So therefore, what I would recommend is we can support our knees with the aid of yoga bolsters. Another option that we can do is supporting the upper body through bolsters underneath the chest and the head. So I'll have you just lift a little bit here. This would be an example of support underneath the upper body. And so with this, we have a little bit of ease into the pose. Of course, there's a variety of modifications that one can use, and for those who have less flexibility, you're always welcome to support higher through the upper body if they have trouble, for example, opening up the chest or any bit of upper back or neck pain. You can always further support with higher bolsters or higher pillows. Lastly, we are going to go into Reclined Hero's Pose. So from here, we're going to have you sit up. Wonderful. And we're going to come into the one-legged version. So I'll have you bring your right leg back on the outside of the hip. Excellent. And now I'm going to have you lean back onto a bolster, coming onto the elbows and then coming back slowly. The reason why we want to bolster in this pose is that this is a very intense stretch for the hip flexors, the right quads, especially the right knee. You may feel a bit of almost achy feeling in the lumbar spine, and that's okay as long as it's not a sharp or shooting pain. If you feel that, then that would be an acceptable time to come out of the pose. However, you will find an achy quality in this pose, and it may be uncomfortable. So just breathe into those areas that are really feeling tight and tense, and find a little bit of ease in the pose. For the rest of the cueing, you want to make sure that the hands are out at a 45-degree angle with the palms facing the ceiling. So for that, we can just make sure that we have, that will also help to open up the chest and create a little bit of openness in the heart. All right, now to come out of this pose, we want to make sure that we turn onto our side on the opposite of the bent leg. So in this case, we'd be turning onto our left side, rolling off of the support. Finally, we're going to close in Shavasana, which is corpse pose. So for this, we can roll slowly onto our back, or we can come onto our side and then slowly roll into the back. For alignment in corpse pose, as always, we want to make sure that our heels are a little bit wider than the width of our hips, and we can just let our feet or toes splay off. And again, we want our arms at a 45-degree angle, externally rotated with our palms facing the ceiling. Again, for alignment, last cue is that we want to make sure we're tucking our shoulder blades up underneath our upper back. So just really tucking here. And then of course, relaxing the head and neck. So here we've run through all of our supine poses for the restorative. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.